Captain, main engineering is ready to proceed.
Warp 1.5, sir.
Engage.
And welcome once again to As the Reel Turns, your place for all things movie and television. Got a really fun show for you. We are starting our summer series. Now, if you remember last time, we did the Summer of James Bond to celebrate his 60th anniversary. And that was our last big summer thing. But now, I figured, before we go, we don't know how long the show's going to last. So I thought we might as well get it out of the way because people ask about it a lot. This entire summer, we are devoting to the beloved science fiction franchise, Star Trek. Yes, Star Trek, celebrating 58 years this year, so we're almost to 60. And we're going to go through as much Star Trek as we possibly can. And this time, in June, we're going to do part 1, as you saw there. We're going to do the classic Star Trek, as it's called. All the series that came up to the year 2005. And I got some great Star Trek fans to talk about it with. We got my friend and fellow coworker, Joe, and my friend and former coworker, Timothy. Guys, thanks for coming on.
Yeah. We didn't scare you away last time.
No, you didn't.
Okay.
No.
We'll have to try harder.
Exactly. Yeah. Well, I hope not. So I appreciate you guys coming on the show. And we are going to jump right into Star Trek. And, for people out there who don't know what Star Trek is, turn off your televisions now and stop watching because you shouldn't be watching this unless you want to be converted, which is our goal.
If you don't know what Star Trek is...
You should be watching.
The truth.
Yeah, after all.
Contact the UN, the U.S. government. You're from another planet.
Better yet, stay away from the government.
That's right, yeah. So, well, anyway, we'll start with some basis here. Star Trek was the creation of a lot of people, but mostly credited to one guy by the name of Gene Roddenberry. Gene Roddenberry had this crazy idea for a science fiction show after trying to do other different types of shows. He worked on a show called The Lieutenant. He tried his own stint at police work. He did a whole bunch of stuff, but his main thing, he wanted to create this science fiction show where it was like the Earth was transformed into a spaceship and went off on journeys. And he subtitled it and pitched it as Wagon Train to the Stars. And after creating a pilot, which we'll talk about, that NBC called Too Cerebral, he came back with a second pilot and launched what became Star Trek, the original series. Here we have the classic intro being played, and you can probably hear the beloved
Space, the final frontier,
doing the famous monologue, Spock. Anyway, as we see the intro
These
here,
are the voyages of the
Timothy, we'll go to you first.
Enterprise,
What do we think
Its five-year
of
mission
Star Trek: The Original
to
Series? It
explore
lasted for
strange new
3
worlds,
seasons on
Seek
NBC.
out new life and new
Anybody
civilization.
who was anybody wanted to cancel this
boldly
thing
go
right
where
from the
no
second
man has
pilot,
gone
right from the
before.
first pilot. And it was seen as this very low-budget show, kind of for the new kids, and like cheesy science fiction, but it really drew audiences. Tell us about Star Trek: The Original Series.
NBC was right. It was too cerebral for the time. We're talking about an era where people were used to sci-fi being like Lost in Space.
Yep.
You want to talk about bad sets.
Oh yeah. And not to insult you, but even a few years ago, Doctor Who.
That's another show. That was another show.
That was another show.
Twilight Zone type
Sure.
aliens and what have you. And the United States was this was the end of the 60s, so we're going through a counterculture crisis in our own country. Vietnam is raging. We're still in the middle of the Cold War. And yeah, a lot of people, like my generation, we went through the same thing in the 80s.
Sure.
The millennials went through it after 9/11. There was this real sense of, is humanity going to survive? And Roddenberry wanted to say, we're not only going to survive, we're going to thrive.
Exactly.
And all the problems, all the social ills, hunger, crime, war, all that's going to go away. Here's how it's going to happen. And within that overarching framework, he told some great stories by some of the best writers of the day.
It's true.
Dorothy Fontana, she's credited as DC Fontana, because unfortunately, even in the late 60s, she was a woman.
You can't have women writers.
So she was credited as DC Fontana. Harlan Ellison wrote one of the most famous of the original series. And there's a whole drama queen thing going on there, but if you know Harlan Ellison.
That's true.
They had some of the best writers of the time doing some great, deep, smart shows. And they had some very mediocre writers at the time doing some really bad shows.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
I push back, real quick, and then I'll let Joe and you talk. But I push back on the bad sets. To this day, even the original, not counting the digital remakes,
Sure.
I have yet to see any of the walls on the Enterprise wobble.
That's
which
true.
is what I hear all the time. Oh, the sets wobble. No, the sets never wobbled.
They never wobble. No, but I mean, but Timothy brings up some really good points. I mean, Joe, we have a lot, the sets, okay, yeah, you can kind of see the styrofoam sometimes, let's be honest.
And season 1, Spock, Leonard Nimoy's ears, they didn't always blend them well.
Yeah.
When Walter Koenig was brought on as Chekhov, he hated that wig. but I mean, there, like you said, there were also a lot of good episodes. I mean, like, they tackled things like the Vietnam War in A Private Little War.
It's not bad enough there's already one serpent in Eden teaching one side about gunpowder. You're going to make sure they all know about it.
Exactly. Each side receives the same knowledge and the same type of firearm.
Have you gone out of your mind? Yes, maybe you have. Tari's wife, she said there was something in that root. She said now that you can refuse her nothing.
Superstition.
Is it a coincidence this is exactly what she wants?
Is it? She wants superior weapons. That's the one thing neither side can have. Bones. Bones, the normal development of this planet was the status quo between the hill people and the villagers. The Klingons changed that with the flintlocks. If this planet is to develop in the way it should, we must equalize both sides again.
Jim, that means you're condemning this whole planet to a war that may never end. It could go on for year after year, massacre after massacre.
All right, Doctor.
War. They had comedy classics like The Trouble with Tribbles.
Seem to be gorged.
Gorged? On my grain? Kirk, I am going to hold you responsible. There must be thousands of them.
Hundreds of thousands.
1,771,561. That's assuming one tribble, multiplying with an average litter of 10, producing a new generation every 12 hours over a period of 3 days.
And that's assuming that they got here 3 days ago.
And allowing for the amount of grain consumed and the volume of the storage.
Really out there things like the naked time, dealing with drugs, you could even say that's a similarity to.
Captain's log, stardate 1704.2, planet Psi 2000. The science party we were to have picked up has been found dead.
Could be some form of space madness we've never heard of.
Question. Could what happened down there to those people create any unusual danger to this vessel and crew?
No escape for you. Have 14 minutes left.
Even if we were under full-scale attack, I couldn't move any faster, not maintain a safety factor.
You can't afford a safety factor.
Hey, Joey, put the knife down. You let Joey, you're just getting sweat about it.
Spend a whole lifetime learning to hide my feelings.
City on the Edge of Forever, dealing with the Great Depression.
Captain's log. No stardate. McCoy has changed the course of time.
What are you?
I am the guardian of forever. Now.
All right, come on.
Oh, how careless of your wife to let you go out that way.
What?
One day soon, man is going to be able to harness incredible energies, maybe even the atom.
Speculation.
I find her most uncommon, Mr. Spock.
Murderers! Assassins!
I'm in love with Edith Keeler.
Edith Keeler must die.
Load him!
And just touching on other subjects like racism and sexism, and of course, how can we forget having Shatner take his shirt off every other episode and kiss a woman every other
ripping his shirt in virtually every fight and finding any opportunity to remove it is a well-known stereotype of the larger-than-life captain. And it turns out that Kirk rips or removes his shirt in 17 episodes. That's over 20% of the original series. Every time you watch the original series, you have a 1 in 5 chance of seeing Kirk in some state of undress. Now,
what do you think of Star Trek, the original series?
Actually, going back to what you mentioned about the cerebral portion, I found it quite interesting, and I have to laugh because the one thing that comes to mind is when you mention the cerebral part about it, I still remember when I started watching Star Trek, my father could not grasp any of it at all. I mean, he just kept looking at it going, well, why do they keep going back to the past? Why do they keep going back to the past if it's supposed to be the future? It's like, Dad, you need to pay attention to what they're actually doing here. And The funniest part about it is, and even my mother caught up about it, going back to what you talked about, some of the social things that they caught up with.
Right.
Balance of Terror is my favorite
Balance
one.
of Terror, sure.
When
Captain's log, stardate 1710.0. The Starship Enterprise is under heavy attack by an enemy vessel.
Obviously, their weaponry is superior to ours, and they have a practical invisibility screen.
Helm, hard over. Phasers, fire, point blank.
I'm pointing out that we could have Romulan spies aboard this ship.
The Earth Commander will follow. He must. And when he attacks, we will destroy him.
Permit me the glory of the kill, Commander.
Thomason. We have him. Move toward him.
We can get just one phaser going.
Phasers, Mr. Spock.
Impossible, Captain.
We have some of the old-style nuclear warheads aboard.
Yes, Commander, but only for self-destruction.
Place one in with the debris.
they got into the subject of the Cold War.
Yeah.
I mean, which, as you said, was raging at the time, along with the Vietnam War. I mean, we had something going on with the Russians at that time, and people, let's face it, of that era were scared to death of. I could never tell back then. I was rather young back then. That they couldn't decide who they were more terrified of, the situation in Vietnam or the Russians.
Right, not to mention...
And Balance of Terror, there it was. I mean, and that was the one, ironically, that had my father sitting on the edge of his seat like this.
Sure.
Watching the thing because he kept knocking it down. And my mom was like, "You're really into this." My dad's like, no, not at all. I mean, because he was a John Wayne, Clint Eastwood type of guy.
Of course.
I mean, if it wasn't Western and if it wasn't laid right out there in front of you, so that you didn't have to think about it, your dad was all over it.
And Balance of Terror, one reason he probably liked it is it was deliberately filmed to mimic a submarine chase.
Yes.
That's what it was meant to be.
Absolutely.
And with a bit of racism in there, because when they see the Romulans for the first time, they all look at Spock because of the pointed ears. But yeah, no. And not to mention, when it comes to Russians, the Klingons were supposed to be a mirror for the Soviets. That's what they were thinking. That was their thing. But I get your point with like, why are they constantly going back to the past? Because all these planets they went to were like reused sets. Because we had the piece of the action with the gangsters.
No, we got no visitor lies to worry about. How does this thing work?
All right, Krakow, we don't have time to show you how to play with toys.
Toys?
What do you think we're here for? To get a cut of your deal? Forget it. That's peanuts to an outfit like the Federation, right?
Unquestionably.
Right.
Right.
Now look, Krakow, we're taking over the whole ball of wax. And you cooperate with us, and maybe we'll cut you in for a piece of the action.
A minuscule, a very small piece.
How much is that?
That's, we'll figure it out later.
Thought you guys had laws. No interference.
Who's interfering? We're taking over. Check.
Right.
We had the one with the Nazis, the Nazi.
That helmet covers a multitude of sins.
Lieutenant, what have we here? A Zeon?
Yes, obviously he's not one of us. I captured him. Is that not the correct procedure with enemies of the fatherland?
With all Zeon pigs, Lieutenant.
Take charge of him.
With pleasure. Today we have a surprise planned for you, Zeon.
Your uniform, Captain.
Yes, it's a shame yours isn't as attractive as mine. Gestapo, I believe.
Quite correct. You should make a very convincing Nazi.
Omega Glory, I think.
I believe so.
And in season 3, one of my mother's favorite episodes, a great one at that. I think it's Paradise Syndrome, the American Indians.
Get out of my way, Salish.
Even though you be a god, Kirak, I cannot permit this joining.
Nobody's asking for your permission.
Then you must strike me dead.
I have no intention of striking you dead.
You bleed. You bleed, Kirak. Behold a god who bleeds.
Oh, yes.
Miramani. Yeah. So great stuff in there. And I mean, again, you don't even have to look at it as a mirror for the times. You can enjoy it as a great science fiction show. I mean, like you have with examples like Mirror Mirror, or
Captain's log, stardate unknown. I command an enterprise where assassination of superiors is a common means of advancing in rank.
You must know what you're doing.
Let me go! Spock! Get these men off me!
You traitors! All right, Spock. Whatever your game is, I'll play it.
Our minds are merging, Doctor. I am ordered to kill you and to proceed against the Halkans as the new captain of the Enterprise.
The Devil in the Dark, with the Horda.
Captain's log, stardate 3196.1. A distress call has brought the Enterprise to Janus 6.
When that creature appears, men die.
Describe it.
I can't. I only got a glimpse of it.
Ed shot it.
A good, clean shot. Didn't even slow it down.
Captain, we are being watched.
Almost as if he'd been thrown into a vat of acid.
Strong enough to eat machinery?
Strong enough to eat anything. That murdering monster's in there.
You're going to stay here.
So many great moments, and I have friends who do the same thing. They are Star Trek fans, but they refuse to watch the original because, oh my God, I can't stand the sets or the rocks or Shatner.
but it's like it very much is. You can't really appreciate modern rock without knowing your country music, your rock and roll, Johnny Cash. Jerry Lee Lewis, all those who set the groundwork. So the same with Star Trek. Original series, even back then, and like you say, they tried to cancel it twice before it took.
Right.
They figured everyone thought this was just going to be another throwaway show. And yet, they went out of their way to things like when they're using the transporter. They did their best to operate the same way every time.
Yeah.
The same switches on the bridge did the same thing every time.
Yep.
When they're going from the bridge to the engineering decks, which are on the lower part of the...
Model, please.
So when they're going from the bridge to the engineering decks, if you watch when they're in the turbo lift, you see the lights go down and then go sideways as they're getting to where they want to be.
That's exactly it.
All this attention to detail, which we take for granted these days, they were putting all that effort into a show that no one thought would last.
And you know, the legacy it left, just the original itself is so big. I mean, you have first of all the amazing cast, and you know, Shatner and Leonard Nimoy and DeForest Kelley, but then you have, and this was Roddenberry's idea, to have like the spaceship Earth go out. So you had a black lady, Nichelle Nichols. You had an Asian man, George Takei. A Russian, oh my gosh, a Russian, Walter Koenig. A Scotsman, Jimmy Doohan.
One of the conventions that I saw Walter Koenig at, there's usually a question and answer period with the guest. And somebody in the audience asked Walter, this was the 60s, why did you agree to play a Russian? And his response, he got a bit incredulous. He said, why did I agree to play a Russian? The money. I was a starving actor. I needed a job.
But I mean, the cast is one thing, but also technology. I mean,
Yes.
we joke about the communicators here, but this gave way to the flip phone.
Yeah.
I mean, just look at it. I mean, come on.
And ringtones.
Yeah.
The ringtone on the original communicator
Yep.
is a simple beep beep.
Yep.
It's like, that's still brilliant. Why can't everyone on their ringtone just have a beep beep?
So true. But no, this was massive, groundbreaking science fiction, and it eventually did get canceled in 1969. The last episode, I believe, being the Turnabout Intruder, I believe.
Unfortunately, yes.
Yeah, which wasn't a great finale by any means, but Star Trek did survive thanks to its fans and thanks to syndication as well, and.
Yeah, the first attempt to cancel it, massive letter writing campaign to save it. After season 3, Paramount, there's no way. They didn't want it anymore.
Sure.
But after season 3 was when the fans, I think at first in California, maybe San Francisco, had the first convention.
Yes, they had their own convention.
And that grew into all the sci-fi conventions we know today. Whenever you see one of your favorite stars at a convention or a public gathering, thank Star Trek.
Oh,
they
yeah.
got that started.
Absolutely. And, the fans and everything tried to keep the show as alive as they could. And I did want to quickly brush up on the fact that if you look up Star Trek and you may see a guy who isn't Captain James T. Kirk, that's because that was Captain Christopher Pike, played by Jeffrey Hunter, who was the cerebral captain, they basically called him. And Hunter was a slight jerk. He was kicked off, fired, left. It's up in the air, but
although he ended up.
Could be these meteoroids.
No, it's something else. There's still something out there.
Coming the speed of light. Collision course.
And they could still be alive, even after 18 years.
If they survive the crash.
We aren't going to go? To be certain?
Not without any indication of survivors, no. Continue on to the Vega colony and take care of our own sick and injured first. We have the helm. Maintain present course.
Yes, sir.
Blame Christ because
That's
of
true.
those amazing blue eyes he has.
Very scary blue eyes at times. But yeah.
But I think in the beginning, they had to start with somebody somewhere.
Exactly, yeah.
I mean, when he stepped in, I've gone back through and I've watched both the Cage and the Menagerie, and I'm
exactly,
like,
the two-parter.
Those weren't that bad shows.
No.
I mean, the fact that NBC didn't want to deal with it, especially when I did some quick research because I was a little confused as to my history on the thing, but I saw that came out in '65. NBC wanted nothing to do with it,
Exactly.
as you guys both said. But I found it quite interesting that when they turned around and took some of the clips out of the Cage and put it into the Menagerie, and they ran that one, and it's just like, hey, all of a sudden, guys, well, here we go.
And that.
Don't you think that...
What you now seem to hear, Captain Kirk, are my thought transmissions. The Commodore was never aboard your vessel. His presence there and in the shuttlecraft was an illusion.
Chris, do you want to go there? Mr. Spock, would you care to take Captain Pike to the transporter room? See him off.
Thank you, sir. For both of us.
has an illusion, and you have reality. May you find your way as pleasant.
And that's not Jeffrey Hunter in the famous chair. That was a different actor.
Yeah. And just real quick before we move on, everyone loves to rag on William Shatner. The fans love to rag on William Shatner. To this day, he insists he never had a performance like that. However, look up the animated film Over the Hedge.
Oh boy, yeah, there we go. There we go.
But that being said, look up some of his other performances on Twilight Zone. He had he had one of the most famous Twilight Zone episodes
There's
ever.
a man on the wing of the plane.
After Star Trek, there's a bad film called Kingdom of the Spiders, but he does a good job in it.
Oh yeah.
So he's not a bad actor. But
and the Esperanto film, Incubus or something that came before Star Trek, we covered Shatner on the show. Actually, we did a whole actor spotlight for him. So check that out as well. But please do yourself a favor. Watch Star Trek, the original.
And if you have to, get the new updated digital version.
Agreed.
Which, yes, the wide shots of the planets in the original, you can tell they're using the same shots over and over
all
again.
the time.
The new digitals, you can see the clouds go across the planet.
And there's nothing really else different except for the exteriors of the ship. Yeah. Very few things are changed within the episode themselves. Yeah. But
and if I may,
although
nothing against digital at all. However, it's still fun to watch the original in its actual original
100%.
format.
And if you have both, compare them. One tiny little detail that I loved in the new ones, the Gorn blinks.
Yes, the Gorn does blink. Yes, that's another great episode, Arena.
Yeah.
So after the original series, fans were devastated, but they tried to keep it alive as much as they could. And producers of Star Trek said, "Well, okay, we're gonna come back at this. Here we go." And their second attempt was, well, let's not dwell on this one, but it's an important second chapter because most people skip over it. 1973, Star Trek: The Animated Series.
Ouch.
Pull up the sign.
Yeah. We'll pull up the sign after the intro. Or as my dad likes to call it, Star Trek: The Laminated Series. Okay, so let me preface this. Big cartoon company in the 70s called Filmation. They did a lot of shows that basically they did their own thing, but they also incorporated live action shows that have ended and brought them to animation. They did it with Gilligan's Island. They did it with Adam West Batman. I believe they may have done it with the Addams Family, but Star Trek was another one. And boy, it's hard to watch sometimes. The nice thing about it is that the entire cast came back except for poor Walter Koenig as Chekhov. However, he did write an episode of the series. And this series lasted a whopping only 22 episodes. And here's what I'm going to say. I, of course, will show clips, of course, but you got to realize that in Star Trek: The Animated Series, this is what happens. Pretend Kirk is sitting in the chair. He says, "Uhura, is anything on radio?" "No, Captain. I can't see a thing, or I can't get a reading at all." "Mr. Spock, what do you have on your viewer?" "Captain, there are things not moving on the screen because I am barely moving nothing but my head. Notice I am moving nothing but my head." Get a load of this. This is what we had to deal with. I mean, the fun thing is that this was animation, so the writers and animators had freedom to draw whatever they wanted.
A lot less expensive to do special effects.
I mean, we had like new aliens like Maress here, who's like a lion cat type of character.
Oh, Enterprise. Lieutenant Maress here. Oh.
Lieutenant, have Mr. Scott beam down the phaser bore and...
But how, sir? It was designed to provide fun and amusement. Hostile behavior doesn't fit its program. Oh. Sir, this is very strange. Oh. The only reason these orders aren't being carried out is Lieutenant Eriks has all the engine controls manually locked now. On its surface, coordinates relayed to transporter room 4.
And the captain's in transports about it with our ever-loving Mr. Spock.
You're funny. And very attractive for a human. Captain Kirk, look behind you.
Really, Mrez, you're going to have to be a little more clever than that.
Our new navigator in place of Chekhov was Eric's, this multi-limbed...
3 arms, 3 legs, orange.
Orange.
Ball.
Oh.
A whole new series of short burst maneuvers has been ordered, sir. Mr. Spock.
Sure, Eric's.
Officer Scott, won't you join us for lunch?
No thanks, Alex. I'm just going to grab a sandwich and get me back to work.
Very good.
One sandwich, that's all. Somebody turn off this infernal food factory. Okay, this whole thing has gone far enough.
Sir?
I've just picked up my clean uniforms from the service chute, and when I put this one on, I discovered this.
Yeah, a lot of orange, a lot of pink in this show, if you notice that. But Joe, we'll start with you. Was this a good idea, and do you know about Star Trek the Animated Series?
I'm probably the wrong guy to start with here, but in all brutal honesty...
Yeah, you can be a little brutal with this.
Yeah, you know me, I can go more than a little brutal on this. To be horribly, horribly brutally honest, I could not stomach this. At my age when that came out, it was, in my personal opinion,
this was Saturday morning.
Horrible. Yeah. I mean, it was absolutely horrible.
Yeah.
I mean, I just, when you'd seen the original series, and then they brought it to this, I'm sorry, guys. Just, no. I saw maybe 2 or 3 episodes, and that was the end of it for me. I was done.
I mean,
even at my age, I was just like, I love animation, even at my age now.
Sure.
You know what? I love animation, but it's got to be good animation. And as you pointed out, it was not.
It was not. But I got to say, like, a lot of the stories were good. I mean, we brought back settings and characters that we'd seen from the original. Like, we brought back the Shore Leave planet.
Oh, it's just as beautiful as I remembered it. Nothing's changed.
Well, this looks like the same spot we beamed down on our first visit. Remember, Doctor, when we saw the White Rabbit?
Yes, and all because I said this place made me feel like Alice in Wonderland.
One side, one side. I'm late, I'm late. Oh, my fuzzy ears and whiskers, I'm late.
I beg your pardon, but did you see a white rabbit?
He went that way, Alice.
Oh, thank you so very much.
Like you said, Doctor, nothing's changed.
Off with his head! Off with his head!
Hey, what's going on here?
Stop him!
Enterprise! Emergency! Beam up! Beam up! Emergency! Beam up!
Uhura to transporter room. What is the emergency? Respond, please.
We brought back Harry Mudd, Harry Mudd for a 3rd time.
So you can appreciate the incredible value I'm offering. With this magical liquid, no person of the opposite sex can resist you. It matters not whether you are young, old, fat, ugly, or repugnant. Nothing personal, gentle beings. Welcome to Motherlode, gentlemen. Interested in purchasing a little love?
We're interested in you, Harry, for fraud, illegal drug manufacture, and swindling.
Are you aware that Harry Mudd is tricking you via an illusion?
What?
The so-called girl is a Regillian hypnoid.
Thief!
I surrender myself. Free will, the mercy of the law.
The Tribbles and Cyrano Jones.
Have you got them? Just putting them together now, sir.
we know that man?
It appears to be.
I don't want to think about it.
Cyrano Jones. And he's got tribbles with him. Tribbles!
Spock's father, Sarek. Everything.
This cousin Selleck. Something strange about him.
You don't think he'd harm Spock?
I don't know, Amanda. I will notify the authorities and ask them to initiate a search.
Good boy.
Everything was good.
In fact, Yesterday's Sun, which I think was the episode where...
Yesteryear,
yes. The Guardian of Forever.
Correct, yep, Guardian of Forever.
Big whole plot, don't need to get into, but that actually added a lot to the Star Trek mythos that even fans who, want to burn the entire series keep things from yesteryear because it added a lot to the character of Spock.
It does.
It made a couple of huge mistakes, but...
Well, I mean, like I said, I didn't want to dwell on this one, but, I'm one of those people who out there, if I were to create a hashtag on social media or anything, it'd be, one of them would definitely be hashtag justice for animated, because it does need some love. It really is hard to watch, but it's good. So story-wise.
I don't know, Daniel, if you're old enough. Do you remember color forms?
I know of them.
Anyone watching, go on the internet, look up what color forms were. The animation reminded me of color forms.
There we go.
Yeah. Because it was stilted. It was cell animation.
Sure, of course.
Yeah.
But there's a great picture out there of Shatner, Nimoy, and DeForest Kelley all reading a script, and there's a microphone there, and I can only guess, and they look like they have 70s haircuts, so I'm saying, this can only be from the animated series, but they were so happy to have jobs, I bet, that it didn't matter. We were happy to see, in some form, our favorite characters back on television, and like I said, this was Saturday morning, so this show, I bet, made kids think, because this isn't like Superman, Batman.
No, and... Unfortunately, a lot of the blame has to go with the studios and the producers because, like you said, this was a Saturday morning show aimed for definitely 12 and under, probably 10 and under. According to the studio mindset at the time, it did not have to be smart. It barely needed to be good.
Sure.
It just had to be a cartoon.
Yeah, exactly. But the bottom line is, if you haven't seen the animated series, hashtag justice for animated, check it out. It is a chapter in the Star Trek saga, and it is the official Chapter 2. What most people think is Chapter 2 is what we're talking about now, which is really Chapter 3. Roddenberry was, he had done the original, he had done the animated, and by this point, the films had started, and we'll cover the films in the next show. But the films are doing well enough at the time. So Roddenberry said, well, maybe it's time that Star Trek went back to television. I mean, the original had been thriving in syndication. Fans were big enough. The animated series, what was that? I don't know. And so Roddenberry said, okay, by this point, the movies are in the 23rd century. Let's go to the 24th. Let's have a brand new crew, keep the ship name, the Enterprise, but let's boldly go on new adventures. This was Star Trek: The Next Generation. All right, so the bottom line of Star Trek: The Next Generation is that from what I can tell from a lot of fans and a lot of that, this is the best Star Trek series ever made. This is the best one.
Unless you grew up on the original series.
Of course.
Then this is horrible.
But yeah, and that's what people thought.
Or there's the in-between.
The in-between.
I was just like...
You're not a fan if you're in between. Pick a side.
I approached it with an open mind.
Exactly.
And I knew when they started this, that's what it had to be.
Well, we'll say this. Here's our brand new Enterprise, the Enterprise D.
If I can, real quick, the very first time I saw this was a publicity still at a convention.
Yep.
and I looked at that ship and I said, that is an ugly ship. This show will go nowhere. Who are these people? Why is the captain bald?
Well,
and I was different from you. I was kind of, I'm a Star Trek fan, but I'm not going to like this.
Yeah.
What sold me on the Enterprise D?
Yeah.
No spoilers here. The first episode, the very first time anywhere in Star Trek, you see a saucer separation at full warp speed.
Oh my gosh, it's beautiful.
And my jaw dropped and my heart beat. And when the engineering deck, if you're watching it, when the engineering deck pulls around, there's some sound effect on the
this
on
shot,
the
if I just
music.
might add.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That sounds like almost like a lion roaring. It's like
Yeah.
I'm getting ready to go to battle. I'm like, that one shot sold the show to me.
Well, the synopsis here is, as you know, we've chimed in a few bits here. We have that you both were not alone. Many Star Trek fans said to themselves, "What is this? A shorter, bald guy with a taller first officer? No, I want Kirk and Spock. I don't know who these guys are. Get them off my television screens." And to be brutally honest, those first couple seasons were pretty hard to get through.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
But as an overall, because we have a couple more shows to get through. Joe, what do you think of Star Trek: The Next Generation? Because we have, Patrick Stewart as Jean-Luc Picard, we have Frakes as Riker, Brent Spiner, an android, a blind engineer, LeVar Burton, so on and so forth.
It took some getting used to, I'll say
Yeah.
that much. And unlike our friend here, I saw the ship and I was intrigued.
Okay.
That was all there was to it. When I
Yep.
saw the ship, I'm like, okay, I need to see more of this because I want to see what this is about. And like yourself, when the saucer came apart from the battle bridge, and I was just like, wow, they've got a cool name for the other half of it. It's
Yeah.
a battle bridge. It's like, this is awesome,
Separation is successful, sir.
As far as
the overall,
as far as the cast, they took some getting used to, but once I realized that they were offsetting each one with their own characteristics reminiscent of the original series.
Yep.
The captain was his own. The first officer I thought was actually pretty cool.
Yep.
I mean,
everybody loves Frakes.
Yeah, I mean, when they brought everybody together again, the first couple of seasons were hard, but as they started building the storyline, which I appreciated, they actually built a storyline, a character development throughout this. I found that to be awesome as well, which
Yeah.
is something the original series really kind of, but didn't really do in its own right. I mean, you got to know the characters, but these characters actually grew through their various adventures. So,
And I mean, there are some great episodes and characters that appear in this. I mean, they chimed in a little bit with the original, like having DeForest Kelley in the first episode.
If you got some reason you want my atoms scattered all over space, boy.
No, sir. But at your age, sir, I thought you shouldn't have to put up with the time and trouble of a shuttlecraft.
Hold it right there, boy.
Sir?
What about my age?
Sorry, sir. If that subject troubles you.
Troubles me? What's so damn troublesome about not having died? How old do you think I am anyway?
137 years, Admiral, according to Starfleet records.
Explain how you remember that so exactly.
I remember every fact I'm exposed to, sir.
I don't see no points on your ears, boy. But you sound like a Vulcan.
Also, the introduction of Q, who is John Delancey's character, who appears many different times, having a great time.
Thou art notified that thy kind hath infiltrated the galaxy too far already. Thou art directed to return to thine own solar system immediately.
That's quite a directive. Would you mind identifying what you are?
We call ourselves the Cube. Well, thou mayst call me that. It's all much the same thing. I present myself to thee as a fellow ship captain, that thou mayst better understand me. Go back whence thou camest. Stay where thou art. Data core medics.
He's frozen!
And this. Actually, the issue at stake is patriotism. Rapid progress to where humans learn to control their military with drugs.
Sir, sickbay reports Lieutenant Torres' condition is better.
Oh, concern for one's fellow comrade. How touching.
Multiple series.
Yeah. We have, the third season is where they actually started to get going there. We have a lot of episodes that focus on we have a Klingon on the bridge.
Yep.
We have Worf. We have a female doctor, Gates McFadden, Dr. Crusher. Her son, Wesley. Everybody, shut up, Wesley!
Sir, I know this may finish me as an acting ensign, but...
Shut up, Wesley!
Lieutenant, pick a good security team and let me know what he does.
Aye, sir. Shut up, Wesley?
Doctor.
And since I am finished here, sir, may I point out that...
Shut up, Wesley!
And of course, one of the big things between season 3 and 4, Picard is kidnapped by a new species we're introduced called the Borg. He's turned into a Borg.
Borg tractor beam is attempting to lock on.
Fired well. Continue rotating shield frequency.
Shield's failing. Tractor beam has locked on.
It's no use. They've already adapted to the new frequencies.
Captain Jean-Luc Picard, you lead the strongest ship of the Federation fleet. You speak for your people.
I have nothing to say to you, and I will resist you with my last ounce of strength.
Strength is irrelevant. Resistance is futile. We wish to improve ourselves. We will add your biological and technological distinctiveness to our own. Your culture will adapt to service ours.
Impossible. My culture is based on freedom and self-determination.
Freedom is irrelevant. Self-determination is irrelevant. You must comply.
We would rather die.
Death is irrelevant. Your archaic cultures are authority-driven. To facilitate our introduction into your societies, it has been decided that a human voice will speak for us in all communications. You have been chosen to be that voice.
I am Locutus of Borg. Resistance is futile. Your life, as it has been, is over. From this time forward, you will service us.
people thought, oh my gosh, we've lost our new favorite captain, but all is well that ends well. Again, some wonderful episodes.
That particular episode, sorry to interrupt.
Yeah, no, Best of Both Worlds.
That Best of Both Worlds was probably, in my opinion, and I'm not going to say as actually was, but in my opinion, that was one of the better episodes that they could have pulled together.
Right.
In fact, I had to laugh because what happened is on the first half of that, I got to see the first half when it first came out, and wouldn't you know, lo and behold, they played the second half in the middle of a snowstorm, and I got to miss it because the power got knocked out by the snowstorm. When I got home, Mom's like, oh no, the power's out. Are you kidding me? It's like I had to wait the whole season to see the second half of that.
Right.
And talk about a cliffhanger that just ran into overtime. I was just like, you know, when I found out that was, you know, that second part was coming through, I turned around and I was just like, okay, the TV is mine. I don't care what anybody says. It's like, well, we want it. No. Not happening. My TV, period.
Well, the other thing was is that, you know, we also have great episodes like The Inner Light, which I met the writer for.
Come.
Hello, sir. Feeling better? Yes. Yes, thank you. But I find that I'm having to rediscover that this is really my home.
We were able to open the probe and examine it. Apparently, whatever had locked onto you must have been self-terminating. It isn't functioning any longer. We found this inside.
And we have
Yesterday's Enterprise.
Yesterday's Enterprise, which is the closest they got to the Mirror Universe, quote, sort of.
Analysis, Mr. Data.
Sensors are reading gravimetric fluctuations, Captain. Most unusual ones.
Unusual in what way? Specify.
Nothing I have seen before.
Is it a wormhole?
Yes and no. Like a time displacement. But it does not have a discernible event horizon.
Sir, navigational subsystems are unable to give coordinates on the object.
Confirmed. The phenomenon does not have a definable center or outer edge.
Are you saying it is, and yet it isn't there?
I do not have sufficient information to make an analysis as yet, Commander. The dynamics of the radiation patterns...
Captain. Something's happening. A new change in sensor readings.
Mr. Data?
Scanning sensors.
Lieutenant, what are their sensor readings? Is that an enemy vessel?
I'm getting too much interference, Captain.
Now hear this. Fleet formation briefing in main war room at 1500 hours. Dr. Joshua Kim, report to Cetacean Ops. Ensign Thomas, please report to the Combat Information Center. Ensign Thomas to CIC.
This isn't right. It's changed.
It's clearing now, Captain. Definitely Federation starship. Accessing registry.
Looks like they had a rough ride.
NCC 1701 C. USS Enterprise.
We have one where four of them get turned into children. I love that episode.
Transfer auxiliary power to inertial dampers.
Warning, structural failure imminent.
Have you got them, O'Brien?
I'm trying, sir. I can't get a pattern lock.
The shuttle is coming apart, Chief. We've got to do it now.
I've got them. There's a 40% drop in mass. I may have lost one of them.
Thank you, Mr. O'Brien. Another moment and...
And some also just wonderful scenes between, you know, guest stars like Whoopi Goldberg playing the bartender Guinan.
I'm afraid to interrupt.
Captain, you didn't have to come all the way down here. I would have been more than happy to have come up to you.
And miss all this. I haven't seen such a complex operation since the Academy lab find in exochemistry.
It's a Tarsac aperitif. It's very, very touching.
An ongoing recurring scene is poker scenes between the cast.
Okay, the game is 5-card stud, nothing wild, ante up.
This game is exceedingly simple. With only 52 cards, 21 of which I will see, and 4 other players, there are a limited number of winning combinations.
There's more to this than just the cards, Data.
Of course, the bets will indicate the relative strength of each hand.
Time to pluck a pigeon.
5.
I'm in.
I too.
Mm-hmm. Cool. The 7 and the 6, ladies.
I bet 10.
See that?
Call.
Fold.
Yeah, me too. I'm out.
I bet 5.
See it?
You're 5 and 5.
Too rich for me.
No help?
I bet 10.
You're 10 and 10?
Is that what is known as a poker face?
Are you playing or not?
I fold. You had nothing.
He bluffed you, Data.
It makes very little sense to bet when you cannot win.
But I did win. I was betting that you wouldn't call.
How could you tell?
Instinct, Data. Instinct. The game is 7-card high-low with a buy on the last card. And just to make it more interesting, the man with the axe takes off.
I do not believe he is bluffing.
I do. There you go.
What have you got?
Flush.
I cannot believe this!
I am your worst nightmare.
Romances are developing between the counselor Deanna Troi and Commander Riker, and also Worf.
Yes.
Weird.
Or there's got to be a triangle.
There's
there
a
somewhere,
triangle.
Yeah.
Hi, Daniel. This is Marina Sirtis, and I got a message from your mum and dad that you're graduating from Keene State College in New Hampshire in May in journalism. Well done. Congratulations. Apparently, the whole family are huge fans of Star Trek and the Orville, and you like Young Justice. Well, that pretty much covers all my career, doesn't it? And apparently, you write and post fan fiction, you have a TV and films radio show, and a YT interview show. I'm not sure what that means. Blimey, you're busy, aren't you? You're dying to come to the UK, which is where I am now. You're going to love it, except today when there's a storm coming through. But I hope you make it over to England at some point, my home country. Anyway, congratulations again on your graduation. Bye, my dear.
We'll go to you now. Just as an overview, what do you think of Star Trek, aptly called Next Gen?
I completely agree with Joe, and I said on the Doctor Who episode, and especially sci-fi series, give the first year a pass.
Of course.
Because the writers don't know who these characters
Right.
are. But especially after season 2, when the writers knew the characters, the makeup people knew the character. Worf looks so much better in season 3 and onward. But most importantly, after 2 seasons, the performers got to know each other not just as professionals, which they were, but as friends.
Yeah,
that comes through in their performance from season 3 onward, and they're giving. By now, they know their characters, and they're giving the script writers notes and feedback and what have you. And hey, can we do this? Can we do that? Famously, they used to, if they wanted a scene in the show that they weren't sure that the censors would allow in, they would deliberately film a scene that was much worse to give the censors something to cut and leave the scene they wanted in. There's a tale that by season 4 or 5, directors who had never worked on the show before hated working with them because they were so much a family and so loose that they would be on set within moments of actual filming, and like Data's telling jokes, and Worf is doing something goofy, and even Picard is like off on a Shakespearean rant. But the moment the director said action, they're in character. They were professional.
Right. One tale that I'll tell real quick is that LeVar Burton playing Geordi LaForge. He, of course, many people knew him way before as Kunta Kinte in Roots, but I knew him as himself in Reading Rainbow. And I don't know how many times I've rewatched the episode where he did the set tour of Next Gen, and I would say to people, that's Star Trek! Look at Star Trek on Reading Rainbow! And they're looking at me like, yeah, Daniel, we don't really care.
Welcome to the Starship Enterprise from the television show Star Trek The Next Generation. Now, you might have seen me here before on the bridge as Lieutenant Geordi LaForge, the ship's navigator. But now, let me show you something I'll bet you haven't seen before. None of this ever appears in an episode of the show, but without it, there just wouldn't be a Star Trek The Next Generation. Same is true of everything on TV. What you see on the screen just isn't the whole story. For every character on the Bionic Bunny show, there are many more doing their jobs behind the scenes. It's the same here on Star Trek The Next Generation. Every week you see the captain, Geordi, and the rest of the Enterprise crew. Worf, Counselor Troi, Data, Commander Riker. Together, they keep the ship running at warp speed. But there's another group of people behind the scenes that you never get a chance to see. Adventure. Pick up a good book. One to beam down. I'll see you next time. Energize.
But yeah, no. Next Generation is so solidified in in Star Trek fans' mind. I mean, it really is a peak for the entire franchise.
It is, and unfortunately, what you were saying before about that that conflict between the original series fans and the Next Gen fans, I wish what happened in the movie Generations had happened so much earlier. Because there's a scene, if you haven't seen it, no spoilers, but there's a scene where Captain Kirk, William Shatner, looks at Picard, captain of the New Enterprise, because things had gone on and Picard said thank you. And Kirk's line is, "It's the least I could do for the captain of the Enterprise." And in that moment, it's like he said, it's okay to like the new show.
That's the passing of the torch there. And they like I said, they did chime in a little, sprinkle a little bit of original series in there, because we had DeForest Kelley come back, Spock and Unification.
Ambassador Spock. Indeed. You have found him, Captain Picard.
Scotty and Relics.
It's completely intact. There's less than 0.003% signal degradation. How is that possible?
I don't know. I've never seen a transporter jury-rigged like this before.
Could someone survive inside a transporter buffer for 75 years?
I know a way to find out.
Great episode.
Fantastic.
And there's some updates in technology, like we don't have the flip open communicators, we have comm badges, and we have new little mini tricorders, not the big strap things. So if you're an original series fan, just look at it if you want in seasons 1 and 2 and say like, oh, the naked now, see what you did there.
Yeah.
But enjoy Next Generation. You're gonna love Next Generation. It is Star Trek, probably, dare I say, at its finest. So that is all we're going to do for Star Trek Part 1 here. I want to thank you both for coming on so much for the show. We're going to do a quick game called Who Are You? And so that's the intro there. And so we're going to roll the clip, and you're going to tell me who it is and or what it is from.
Son Frank, he needs a black suit. There was a death in the family. My father, 85 years old, war hero. There's a funeral this afternoon, military funeral, planes flying overhead, 21-gun salute. Frank needs to borrow a suit for a couple of hours.
All right, so that is the clip, and if you, what you have to tell me is who it is and or what it is from, and if you get it right, you get points. If you get it wrong, we will send a box of tribbles to the Klingon Chancellor High Council and say it's from my friend Dylan. Sorry, Dylan. So Joe, tell me quickly, who do you think that is and or what it is from?
I have to say I have no clue who that was.
Okay.
Now, as far as the video clip that it came from, I'm going to go with a cut scene from the original Top Gun.
Top Gun, okay.
Yeah, because honestly, I figured that was about the time they lost Goose in the epic, epic if that's the word you'd use,
sure,
in the actual plane crash and loss of Goose.
All right, sounds good. Timothy, quickly, who do you think who that is?
Joe is so close. I have this one now.
Okay.
Joe is so close. That is actually not a clip that's ever been broadcast anywhere.
Okay.
It is a screen test of Robert De Niro for Godfather 4, because you see, he wants to get back into the Godfather films, and what it is Michael Corleone has been laying in front of that chair in Italy for years now. They just now found his body, and they're bringing it back to New York for a burial, and that's why his son needs to tuck. So yeah, that's a screen test for De Niro.
Okay, that's a screen test for De Niro, and then Top Gun. So until then, thank you both for coming on. Thank you to our Magic and Tech team. My name is Dan Saletti. Live long and prosper, and that's a wrap.